McLaughlin just takes it on the line.
Hello again, welcome back to Birmingham. We've already seen our first sprint lap of the night. Let's just get the confirmed result. No doubt about the winner, Joey McLaughlin, who started the chase of that green jersey for ANC. There was a photo there for second and third place. Mike Doyle got it, and third was the Australian Alan Piper. That's the 1, 2, 3. Let's rejoin the race. Here's Phil Liggett.
Thank you, Richard. And as we come back to the race here, we've got three riders trying to go clear. Alan Piper in the lead, Phil Baton at the back of this threesome, and in the middle, Adrian Timmis, the 22-year-old ANC Halfords rider from Cannock, which from Birmingham is about a 5-penny bus ride away. And this is a very good attack by Timmis and Piper and Baton, three very strong workhorses. They're all well accomplished at long-distance cycling as well as this type of circuit racing. But it looks as though the attack is not going to work this time. The main field very vigilant indeed, and it's Tony James, I think, who's bringing up the pack. This is Baton, the Staffordshire engine, and he's bringing the group through, but Tony James working hard for Falcon Cycles to bring this race right up to these three leaders. 42 laps from the finish at the moment. And Baton says that looks like it's not going to work. He's prepared to wait, or is he? Timmis certainly isn't. He goes through and puts his head down. Well, the last time Timmis came along the Victoria Square, it was to win a stage of the milk race, and there he is. He did so in his final year as an amateur last year, and since then he's made a very successful beginning to his professional career with ANC. And Timmis seems to have the wind in his tail tonight. He's been in action for most of this race, looking perhaps for a final victory. The crowd here loving to see a local man away, and he's got the gap. A good move by Timmis this. He waited until the race picked up Alan Piper, perhaps the most dangerous man of the group, and Phil Baton, the Vodusel man, and then he's tried to go away again. He's heading out now, hopefully for the 8-second gap, and in fact that is £500 if Timmis can gain 8 seconds over the field. The time taken right on the line and nowhere else around the circuit, so Timmis is going to have to put up with the speed all the way around and hope that when he gets back to the finish line it adds up to 8 seconds. Checking over his shoulder to see if the gap is opening. You can see standing out a mile now that bright yellow jersey of Malcolm Elliott, the overall leader, having won the race at Cardiff and given himself the overall lead. Steve Jockin puffing and blowing a bit there in the front. But this is the man who's flying as he comes away from New Street up Temple Street. And so Adrian Timmis swings down towards the finish. Here we have Steve Jockin on the front. And news coming in from me that Tony Francis down in the pits has somebody with him.
Yes, Mike Doyle's here, the green jersey man. What's the problem, Mike, quickly? I broke the cones, my front wheel. So, you know, it's just hard. It's okay in the straights, just around the corners, you know. It's just touching the front
So it's a continual problem for you then, is it?
Yeah, bit of bad luck, you know.
I think you better get back in the race, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll leave you to it.
Thank you.
And somebody indeed, none less than Mike Doyle, the leader of the King of the Sprints competition here. And Doyle will want to get back in the fray as quickly as he can for the next sprint. There are 3 sprints, of course, this evening. We've had one already. Doyle scored very well by finishing second in that opening sprint, and now he waits for the bunch to go by. And it looks as though the referees are holding him till the back of the bunch, because that's where he obviously has taken his lap out from. And that will leave a lot of work for Mike Doyle to get back up with the leaders, because although these riders are all together, it is extremely difficult to bridge the gap towards the leading group. And this is the man who's creating all the pain for the boys in that big bunch, Adrian Timmis from Cannock. Well, Mike Doyle, having scored second place in that opening King of the Sprints tonight, will get 4 points there. That will certainly help him with his quest to take the green jersey to Westminster next Sunday. Counter-attack coming up here from Mark Walsham of the Percy Bilton team, but we're now with Adrian Timmis and looking for the 8-second time gap, which he still wants over the pack. We'll put the clock on this time through. There it is, and we'll see what the gap is. £500 for 8 seconds. It doesn't seem a lot unless you're going round the centre of Birmingham at 30 miles an hour, and almost 6 seconds. So still 2 seconds adrift. Well, Timmis must have come into the city of Birmingham many, many times during his young life, and I'm quite sure he's never come in quite as quick as he's coming down Victoria Square tonight. Down New Street here, of course, into Temple Street, and Timmis receiving all the cheers of what has become a great crowd here in Birmingham. They've seen many of these Kellogg City Centre events, but they've never seen a different winner other than a rider from Australia. Phil Anderson in 1983, Alan Piper in 1984, and Gary Sutton it was last year. Well, this is a very, very brave attack indeed by Adrian Timmis, because he still has 35 laps to go to the finish. And he looks so casual and nonchalant as he goes through the finishing line here now with 34 to go. The bunch beginning to mass there. They're waiting for somebody to take up the chase, and it looks as though it may well be left to the Moducell team if they're going to pick up this rider. Timmis, his light frame, and that's his body, not his bicycle, bouncing over the roads of Birmingham. Brakes hard. And this is the bunch as they swing away from New Street. Malcolm Elliott not giving an inch tonight, neither is Shane Sutton. He was just on the front there as we made that left turn, the Australian, and now we're back in the pits too.
What's your problem? You're jumping on the 16, and apart from not being able to get your breath, what's the problem, Paul? The block's jumping on the 16, and I couldn't get it in the 16 at the time. I kept slipping on. It was about the time. No, there's a very fine distinction between a mechanical breakdown and bad preparation, isn't there? This is definitely the former, is it? No, yes, it's not no fault of the mechanic here, but God, blimey, it's so fast out there. That was a quick change. Pretty quick, yeah. But it's so fast out there. How are you finding the race? Well, you've seen the film Rollerball. It's got nothing on this, I tell you. Well, they'll be catching up with you shortly. So, yeah. I tell you what, just get your breath back, and we'll watch you get back in the race in a moment. Okay, here they come.
And Paul Watson there, still finding time for a joke, and he'll go back into the race, but not with the leader, of course, as he wants to do. He'll have to go back in with the pack because Timmis stays out in front. And that's also Dennis Erdvelt, and you can see his left arm there. Well, he broke that in a car accident 4 years ago, and he really does find it quite a handicap. Erdvelt from Belgium, he too taking a free lap out, going back in the race. The rule here, by the way, they're allowed 1 lap out for mechanical problems, and then they must rejoin the race or retire. That rule does not apply in the final 5 laps of the race, of course. Then I'm afraid you do retire. So Timmis still appearing to nonchalantly tour around the city of Birmingham, and yet he's averaging 27.5 miles an hour here. And the crowd reaching forward to cheer him on, and the bunch beginning to close down. Timmis checks over his shoulder, sees the gap. I wonder what he thinks about that, because the gap is closing, I think. He goes through the finishing line again, and there is the pack, and it's looking a lot more urgent now for the overall chase for that yellow jersey during the 7 city centre races. And of course we end in Westminster next Sunday with a grand finale there. The first 10 riders across the finishing line at the end of the race score the points. And Malcolm Elliott, by virtue of a win in Cardiff last week, where he scored 20 points, went into the leader's yellow shirt, and there he is sitting about 5 men back and watching everybody as they try to slip him tonight. And still we have Timmis holding off. He's been away now for 9 laps. And it looks like Alan Piper's had enough of this breakaway by Timmis. He's got a lot more urgency in his pace. The Australian, who lives in Belgium, rides for a Dutch team, is now here in the city of Birmingham and closing down the race on Adrian Timmis. And there's Timmis. He will have spotted that blue jersey of Piper. He'll know only too well. He takes a drink, almost as if he surrendered there when he saw Alan Piper had taken up the chase. Round and back into New Street. And Piper has picked up Timmis now, because there he is on the front. And the far right of our picture in white is Paul Sherwin, the British circuit race champion, trying to get into the action. He's having a hard job tonight to get to the front of this group. Steve Jockin goes through in 2nd place. Jockin from the Moducell team was the winner of the Michelin Grand Prix Series in May and June. And Piper wants some help now. Chris Wharton in the orange and green on the right. I thought for a moment he was going to put an attack in at a very tactical point on a sharp bend, but no, he drops back. Steve Jones back in second place now, behind Jockin. Piper falls into third place. And I think we can go back down to Tony Francis, rather, who has a busy day in the pits.
Have you had enough?
Yeah, I've had a chest infection this week, and I'm on antibiotics, and it's just all lung work around here this evening. It's such a hard circuit, and once you go into an oxygen debt, your muscles go to jelly, and
Sounds to me if you shouldn't have been competing in the first place.
well, I don't like to let my sponsor down. He's really good to me, so I like to do my best for him, but it's no chance. I just got to try and get myself back into shape for London, for the final race.
I think you want a glass of hot milk and an early night. Thanks very much.
Okay.
And thank you very much, Tony Francis. My apologies tonight. And the race goes on once more with the bunch all together. This time coming up to the sprint lap. First 5 men over the line take the points. And the Mike Doyle we haven't seen for quite some time. And in fact, Mike Doyle doesn't appear to have recovered from that mechanical problem that put him in the pits. He restarted on the back of the line and hasn't found the strength to get back up to the front. A long, long line snaking through. Indication of the speed here. Chris Wharton opens up at the front. Steve Jockin coming as well too on the far right. This little man that has tremendous power in his legs when it comes to the sprint. Now 5 points on the line. Jockin will take it. I think Piper may have got second. Chris Wharton possibly in third place. But Mike Doyle, the big loser there, and we can see again here the sprint. Jockin on the front, using the sprint we haven't seen too often in this City Centre series. And Alan Piper on his right will take second place, I think, yes.
Well, the pocket rocket. Welcome back. Let's have a look at the result of that second sprint lap then. Steve Jockin got it. Alan Piper flickered again, this time in second place. Then it was Chris Wharton, Henny Kuiper and Steve Jones. No Mike Doyle, which is interesting. Here's Phil.
And with 15 laps to go, 2 men in the lead here. Adrian Timmis in front and Alan Piper. And as we see these 2 riders in the lead, let's go immediately to Tony Francis down in the pits.
Yeah, it's a bit of a surprise here because Mike Doyle, the leader of the King of the Sprints, the man in the green jersey, has had to pack it in. Is it physical or mechanical, Mike?
Well, firstly, it was mechanical. My cone's broken in my front wheel after the first sprint. And then I was suffering, to be honest, from the start anyway, because I've been having trouble with my stomach. I had a bit of an acidy stomach, you know.
They're falling like flies here. I wonder why it is.
I think it's that hill. It's an awful tough climb coming out of that corner there, you know. It's a long, stiff climb, and you just hit that at top speed, and you just sail over the top of it. And if you get stuck at the back, you know, it's a struggle trying to up the speed coming out of the corner.
You're going to have to surrender that jersey, aren't you?
Well, I don't know. It depends what Joey McLaughlin does. If he doesn't score in the last one, well, I'll still have quite an advantage, you know, because I was 15 points ahead of him anyway. So it depends on the riders left in the event.
Well, let you get back in the car and have a sit down. In the meantime, back to you, Phil Liggett.
And thank you very much, Tony. And in fact, they may be falling like flies into the pits, but the 2 boys who are flying out here are out of our camera shot at the moment. But there they are, Alan Piper and Adrian Timmis. They made their attack and they are now going clear of the field, and this is a marvellous ride by Piper and Timmis. Timmis has been on the attack throughout the evening, and now he's been joined by Alan Piper, and Piper is a real workhorse. Look at the face of Alan Piper here. They respond well to the crowd. Timmis, of course, the local man. Piper, the rider who's won on this circuit in 1984, and he knows it well. Once again, the crowd strains forward to catch a glimpse of the Australian on the right of these 2. And Timmis, of course, he's willing to work now. There's a chance here for a fairy tale result for the race tonight. First year professional for Adrian Timmis, a chance to win almost in his home city. And it's 2 laps to go to the 3rd and final King of the Sprints tonight. And with Mike Doyle out for the count and watching this race from the pits now, then he's going to have to sweat it out and watch riders take valuable points off his overall lead. And the hands there of Adrian Timmis from our motorbike camera that is keeping up with the riders. And still Timmis finding the strength to sprint away from New Street here. And I think again we can go down to Tony Francis back in the pits.
Well, yet another victim of this race. There seem to be more riders in the pits than on the road is Paul Sherwin. Paul, what is your problem?
I'm not fit enough. The last few races have been a bit slower because of conditions, but tonight, because it's very dry, it's very, very fast, and having had 3.5 weeks off competition during the Tour de France and then a bit of an illness when I came back, I just...
Is there a bug going round or something? Everybody seems to have a virus of some sort.
I think if anyone has got a virus, it's the kind of virus that gives you sore legs up that hill.
All right, well, I hope you get better soon. Thank you, Paul.
I'll be all right for London.
And so we're back now with the race 1 lap to the sprint finish. No doubt about who's going to score first and second. It's only a question of which order. Alan Piper quite willing to do a lot of work here. He worked hard at Cardiff, if you remember, last Monday. And at the end of the day, it was Malcolm Elliott who caught him and beat him in the sprint. And Alan Piper isn't a man to forget too easily. This time, Piper has one of Elliott's AMC Halford's teammates with him, Adrian Timmis. And Timmis, too, can be a useful finisher, because Alan Piper isn't the greatest sprinter in the world, so this could be a very interesting sprint finish if, of course, that's the way it happens tonight. Well, they'll come along this time to take 5 and 4 points. Piper grits his teeth. The lean, hungry man from Australia who's now living in Belgium, and it looks to me as though Timmis isn't even going to contest this sprint. Piper gets the 5 points, Timmis gets 4, and I'm quite sure that won't be the case when they come through to the finish very, very shortly. And look at this gap as we look now, way back down towards Temple Road. No sign of the race at all. There they are. That's an enormous gap. And we're now must be considering the possibility of these two riders going up and lapping the field. And this is the sprint. This is Glenn Mitchell, and Chris Wharton on the right of the picture there takes 3rd place. So Wharton scores as well. And those 3 riders scoring points will help Mike Doyle to breathe a sigh of relief tonight, because they're not so high up the overall classification. And I think when the computer works out the overall standings at the end this evening, Mike Doyle should still be in that leader's green jersey. So we can have a look now, confirmation of the full result there. Piper and Timmis, because they were well clear. Then came Chris Wharton. Steve Jockey nipped in for 4th, and Glenn Mitchell took 5th place. And that is a very good result for Mike Doyle, because his main rivals failed to score. But now we're concentrating on the last few laps of the race, and 1st and 2nd on the road. 9.5 laps to go at the moment, and these are the 2 leaders. And once again, the City Corporation here in Birmingham having done a marvellous job to close down the city centre. Have a job crossing New Street on a normal working day, but it's empty now, and just for the benefit of 2 riders receiving all the accolades of the crowd here. Local man Adrian Timmis leading the Continental Panasonic rider Alan Piper. Well, Piper has won the Tour of Sweden in days gone by. He's also ridden the Tour de France. He is an extremely good man on his own against the clock. He'll be well aware too of the capabilities of Adrian Timmis, and even if he is only a first-year professional, he will treat him with a great deal of respect, I'm sure. And there is Piper. He didn't make the Tour de France team this year, despite moving to the same team as Robert Miller. And he hasn't gone to Colorado Springs, where all the World Championships are taking place. We're into the 2nd week there of the championships. And look at this gap now. We're looking way, way back. This is the biggest gap we've had, and we've been trying to get a breakaway like this since Manchester 3 weeks ago. We've been to Manchester, Dublin, Cork, Glasgow and Cardiff, and we've never had a gap like this by 2 men. So John Herity is on the front, an early leader. The leader, in fact, when we arrived at Cardiff last week, and he lost the title to Malcolm Elliott. Piper and Timmis are still clear, and the bunch carry on chasing.
I'm sure you know, this city is bidding to stage the 1992 Olympic Games along with the likes of Barcelona, Brisbane, Paris and Amsterdam. With me, the man organising the Birmingham bid, Richard Callicott. Have you got a hope in hell?
Well, I'm one of a team, in fact, Tony, but yes, of course we have. Birmingham's not entered this for fun. It's a competition, and we believe we've got the best technical bid that there is going, and it's been our campaign for the last 12 months to try and bring the games to Birmingham.
Some cynics are saying that the decision has already been made, that it's going to Barcelona. Do you accept that?
There's more rumours circulating at the moment about where the games are going to be in various facets of the candidature, that if you were to believe them all, then you wouldn't continue. No.
Do you have a sneaking suspicion, though, that somebody's decided already?
No. The beauty of the Olympic Games is that the individual members of the IOC have their own individual vote. There's no way that anybody can possibly know which way they're going to vote before the bid. That's why we're lobbying so hard.
All right, October the 17th decision day. We wish you the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And meanwhile, these two riders are holding off in what is turning out to be the break of these championships. Piper on the front and always willing to ride hard. McLaughlin is at the back, and earlier we saw him chasing, and I'm wondering now what he's doing, because he's the teammate of Adrian Timmis, and Timmis should be taking encouragement here from the fact that his team will be blocking and trying to slow down. Well, that big bunch of riders has thinned out considerably. That was the bunch round, and these are the leaders chasing. So the possibility of them lapping the field is now becoming a reality. Well, the Australian riders always come to these events, and they always rise to the occasion. Remember Danny Clark in Glasgow. Shane Sutton of the Falcon Cycles team was the winner of the whole series a year ago. He's back up there in second place at the moment, 8 points behind Malcolm Elliott on the overall classification. But he's back in this main pack. And McLaughlin on the front there, keeping the pace high. The clock has gone on there to check the gap. And it's not the gap now of the riders in front of that bunch, but the two riders, in fact, behind the bunch to see how close they are coming to catching them. And here they come down towards the finishing line for yet another lap to be completed. Timmis comes through. Piper taking his turn to have a breather at the back there. 25.71 seconds the gap. And that, in real terms, I suppose, is no more than 450 metres. And so they're coming up to 5 laps to go, these two riders. That means that if anybody now has a problem, then they're going to have to get back on the bikes and chase or retire from the event. And if we are treated to the situation where these two men do catch the main field, then the main field will be given a signal of only 1 lap to race, and the two leaders will be left alone on the track to fight out the finish. Well, that's a rule that we've had on the books for some time, and we've never had to use it before. So I hope the judges like me will get it right. Well, the pack goes through. It's 4 laps to go. These are the two leaders chasing. The gap to me looks still to be about the same, 26 seconds. Now, what's in the mind of Alan Piper, and indeed in Adrian Timmis. Timmis tightening his toe straps there, quite clearly thinking of the sprint finish now, confident that they are no longer in danger of being caught by the rest of the field. Alan Piper doing more work, I think, than Timmis now, and Timmis receiving signals there from his pits. And Timmis there, again, adjusting his feet in those toe clips, tightening them in very, very tight indeed. So often we are treated to the exhibition of professional riders pulling their feet out of those clips in the sprint, and as a result losing all of their momentum when they really want to go as fast as they can. Piper, a very popular rider here. Many of the cheers here reserved for Alan Piper. Everybody, I suspect, would like to see Timmis win, because his sponsors, ANC and Halfords, are here in Birmingham and just down the road in Stoke-on-Trent, and Adrian Timmis himself coming from Cannock. So it really will be a home victory tonight for the young man in his first year as a pro, and the only rider who's likely to spoil it, certainly there's no one else, will be Alan Piper. And there's Piper now. Piper looking across, and I think Piper's saying, come on through and do some work, don't just sit there. and I think Timmis is objecting, but accepting the fact he must go and do some work at the front to keep them both ahead of the field. So Piper has talked Timmis into coming up front as we go out once more onto the circuit. And Timmis looks across at Piper and goes back into his slipstream. And Alan Piper is going to wonder now quite what he's got to do to get rid of Adrian Timmis. This could be a most interesting sprint. You remember back to Nottingham, you remember too Alan Piper also winning there by default when he was third across the line. The riders in front of him were both disqualified for poor sprinting, but of course Piper won here in 84 as well. And that's the field going by, but the interest turns to the back of the race because the two leaders are coming flying round that corner again. And although these two riders are losing a little bit of time, they're no longer interested in time now. They've given up the thought of catching that group in front. They're more concerned with each other. And Piper's still finding the strength to be the workhorse with 2 laps to go. He's going to become more and more concerned by the lack of effort coming from Adrian Timmis now. Timmis perhaps can be excused this because he's anxious to win, living so close to home. You'll never ever slow Alan Piper down, and that's a certainty. He doesn't know when to give up. This is made him such a popular racing cyclist on the continent as well as here in Britain. Piper still being left to make this climb up and away from New Street. He must be very concerned now by Timmis just sitting there, not giving him anything, because if a rider can keep up in the slipstream, and Piper of all people will know that Timmis will find the strength to come through in the sprint. And coming through to the bell this time, Alan Piper continually out of the saddle to keep his rhythm up here. And now he watches over his shoulder to see the whereabouts of Adrian Timmis, and he's still actually shouting at him, I think. He's not a man to mince words like most Australians when the chips are down, and Piper will certainly be saying a thing or two to Adrian Timmis. 1 lap to go, inside a kilometre to the finish, and still Piper is obliged to lead. Piper searching all the time for that gear lever, shifting it up and down, changing gear. So anxious now to know the whereabouts of Adrian Timmis. He knows this race is between the two of them. Timmis quite content not to follow, and Piper weaving all over the road here. This is like a track finish. The rider in the front wants the rider at the back to come and take the lead, and Timmis is having none of it. So as we come down towards the finish now, you can hear the bell. Well, that in fact is for the main field, just passing through the line. We're watching the finish now, and almost on the tail of the leaders. Piper still in the front, watching for the jump that's going to come from Timmis for sure. Timmis goes for the gears, moves up to the gears which might win in this race. Here in the centre of Birmingham, Piper knows the road so well, he knows the finish, he's done it all before. Piper opens the sprint now, Timmis starts too. Timmis goes on his right and is coming fast. Timmis goes by on Alan Piper. Piper grits his teeth here and he's coming back. Timmis is on the right on the line. Well, what a marvellous finish. Alan Piper takes it on the line, and well he deserved to as well. But what a sprint that really was, because Piper came home by the width of his racing tyre, I think, and he'll be absolutely delighted with that. And Timmis appreciates the work rate of Alan Piper. This is the sprint for third place, and Malcolm Elliott on the far right using those legs which won in Dublin and which won in Cardiff last week. It won't be first now, but easily he takes third place, and Mark Walsham will take fourth. So Elliott will increase his overall lead.
That's how I saw them over the line, but it was the man in the yellow, Malcolm Elliott, who
so as the riders cool down, we'll try and catch a look at the slow motion. There's the two leaders going round the circuit to the applause of a marvellous crowd, and now here we are with the slow motion, and you can see in the end that Piper won it quite well.
Alan Piper, congratulations. Was that your scheme of things right from the start, to break away like that?
Yeah, it was. I think it was the hardest circuit of the series, and I didn't think I was going to get rid of him there. Everyone seemed to be riding so good tonight, and well, I just sort of persevered, and it came off. Luckily, I had an ANC rider with me, and he worked quite well. And I lost it to him in the end.
You just pipped him at the death,
didn't you? Close to tell you, I changed gears, and my gear jumped, and he got in front. I thought, God, I've lost it.
Tell me, how were you able to break away like that?
Well, if you just keep attacking somebody, they just get sick of it after a while.
And there's something about you Aussies, isn't there? You seem to win here. Well, you do win here every year.
Well, in Europe, I rode 3 weeks in the Tour de France 3 years ago, my first Tour de France, and I didn't have one person cheer for me for 3